Did you know the voice actor of Shaggy from Scooby-Doo is Arab? Zoinks! His name is Casey Kasem. I knew him as the voice of Shaggy. What I didn't know is that he was one of the most recognizable voices in America for years. But that's not why I'm making this video. I'm making it because Casey Kasem did something almost unheard of in Hollywood. At the height of his career, he walked away from one of the biggest cartoons on television because he refused to take part in another stereotypical depiction of Arabs. This story was brought to my attention thanks to so many of the amazing commenters on my channel, and recently thanks to a Ko-Fi supporter. I want to tell you about Casey Kasem, the episode of Transformers that made him walk away, and why I think he deserves to be remembered as one of Hollywood's first Arab actors to stand up for the Arab people. Yallah! Real quick, I recently became friends with Griffin Thorne, a graphic designer at Corridor Crew. He was telling me about his friend Mohammed Abu Ziyad, a powerlifter from Gaza. Mohammed's dream was to open his own gym. He finally made it happen, then an Israeli bombing destroyed it, but he didn't quit. He and his community still trained there, even in the rubble. Griffin was so moved by Mohammed's story that he built him a website and designed a line of merch for his gym completely for free. 100% of the profits go directly to Mohammed to help support him, his family, and his community during the ongoing genocide. If you're able to, I would really appreciate you checking out the store and buying a shirt or even a hat, because it makes a real difference. I wasn't asked to say any of this. This is not sponsored. I just think it's an incredible story and I want to help out. That's why I bought a hat for myself. Link is in the description. Thank you. Who was Casey Kasem? When most people hear the name Casey Kasem, they think of his warm radio voice.
My name's Casey Kasem, reminding you to keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
That sign-off became iconic. For nearly 4 decades, Casey counted down America's favorite songs on American Top 40. But before he became America's favorite DJ, he was Kamal Amin Kasem. He was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1932 to Lebanese Druze immigrant parents. The Druze are an Arabic-speaking ethno-religious community. They originate as an offshoot of Shi'i Islam from the 11th century. Like millions of immigrants before them, Casey's parents came to America looking for opportunity. His father worked as a grocer while Casey grew up in Michigan, attended public schools, served in the United States Army during the Korean War, and eventually found his way into radio. It's one of the most American success stories you can imagine. By the late 1960s, his career was taking off. His voice caught the attention of the cartoon company Hanna-Barbera. They hired him, and at first he voiced smaller characters. Then came bigger opportunities. Robin in the Batman-Superman Hour. Then in 1969, Hanna-Barbera launched what would become one of the biggest cartoon franchises in television history, Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo, where are you? We got some work to do now.
The voice behind the lanky, constantly hungry, easily frightened Shaggy Rogers, that was Casey Kasem.
Zoinks! 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 Zoinks!
This is something I find so fascinating about his story. Millions of Americans grew up listening to the voice of an Arab without ever realizing it. And that's exactly why what happens next matters so much. I talk a lot on this channel about Arab representation in movies and television. Who gets cast to play Arabs? Who gets to tell our stories? And maybe most importantly, who gets to be the hero? For decades, genuine Arab representation in Hollywood has been almost non-existent. Unless, of course, the Arab is the villain. If an Arab appears on screen, you can almost predict exactly who they're gonna be. The rich oil sheikh, the hypersexual monster, the terrorist, the religious fanatic, the barbarian, the greedy dictator. Hollywood recycles the same handful of stereotypes over and over again. By the time Casey Kasem had become one of the biggest voice actors in America, this was becoming the norm. Imagine spending decades building your career while constantly watching people who look like you be portrayed as the enemy. Not once, not twice, people. Over and over again, every time an Arab is on screen. And eventually, the day came when Hollywood asked him to become part of the problem. Do you think they asked him to play a thoughtful Arab, a complex character with depth? They handed him a script filled with the same stereotypes he'd been watching for years. Except this time, he wasn't sitting in the audience. He was standing in the recording booth, and he had a decision to make. the cartoon series that made him quit. It's the mid-1980s. Transformers is one of the biggest cartoons in the world. If you were a kid back then, this show was everything. Giant robots, cool action scenes. Every episode felt epic, and don't forget the amazing toys. I remember catching reruns of Transformers in Arabic when I was a child growing up in Kuwait. Casey Kasem was already part of the cast. He voiced several characters including Cliffjumper and Blue Streak.
I'll report the Insecticon activity to Prime as soon as I take care of that traitor Mirage.
Then one week, he was handed the script for a season 3 episode called Thief in the Night. As he read through it, one thing jumped off the page. The episode introduced a fictional Middle Eastern country called Carbamia. Yeah, seriously, Carbamia. The name alone tells you exactly where this is going. The country's ruler is a dictator named Abdul Fakadi. Here's the part of the story I admire the most. Casey didn't slam the script down. He did not storm out, and he didn't demand that they cancel the episode. Instead, he asked one incredibly reasonable question. Are there any good Arabs in this script? For balance. He wasn't asking them to remove the villain. He wasn't arguing that Arabs could never be bad guys. He simply wanted one Arab character who wasn't another stereotype. The writers talked about it. The producers talked about it. And they had an answer. No. Later, Casey recalled exactly what happened. There was one other, but he was no different than Abdul, so I told the show's director that in good conscience, I couldn't be part of that show. Think about how remarkable this is. Voice acting is freelance work. Every job matters. So walking away means giving up money and risking future opportunities. But Casey believed some things were more important than another paycheck. He walked away because he refused to help reinforce another ugly stereotype about his people. And honestly, after reading this story, I have one question. How bad is this episode? Let's find out together. After some setup scenes, we're on a cruise ship. The captain introduces the country they're sailing by, Carbamia. I still can't get over the name. The captain says it's a desert kingdom ruled by Abdul Fakadi. This is an obvious reference to Libyan ruler Muammar Gaddafi. Here's the historical context. In 1981, the Gulf of Sidra incidents were a series of Cold War-era military clashes between the United States Navy and Libyan forces in the Mediterranean Sea. These skirmishes and the onslaught of American propaganda framed Gaddafi as a terrible leader. And did you know these incidents helped inspire movies like Top Gun along with this cartoon? We cut to a desert and why are there cacti here? These look like what you would see in the deserts of the American West, not an Arabian country. They just thought desert, so duh, there's got to be cactus in it, right? This is wrong. We see a concrete sign. At the top, there's a crescent moon with stars. This is a reference to Islam and flags of countries with majority Muslim populations. You see the crescent and star on the flags of Turkey, Pakistan, and importantly, Libya. Then it reads Carbamia City. Population 4,000 people. 10,000 camels. Wow, how incredibly insensitive. This is a direct call out on the importance of one of the most respected and loved animals in the region, the camel. We get a shot of a building and wait a minute, I thought this was set in Arabia somewhere. This building reminds me of East Asian architecture. We're introduced to Abdul Fakadi, the protagonist. He's dressed like a military general, which is another reference to Gaddafi. By his side is, Bedouin-looking Arabs. We get a close-up of them. They're wearing qitras. The one on the left is wearing an aqal maqsib. This type of aqal is associated with Arabian Peninsula Bedouins or Saudi royalty. They're wearing the traditional white Arab robe, which we call dishdasha in Kuwait. Libyan Arabs don't wear these types of clothes. I'm guessing it's supposed to be Libya because they say it's in Africa and we have a Gaddafi-like character. Either way, this is Orientalist. The mixing and matching of clothes from different parts of Arabia is offensive. It paints the area as monolithic. Imagine this. There's a movie set in New York City and everyone is wearing Texan cowboy hats. You would roll your eyes and think that the people who made this movie are complete idiots. That's how I'm feeling right now. The guy on the right has a thin purple agal, which I've never seen in my entire life. Abdul Fakadi, of course, appears riding on a camel. This is so dumb. The guy is a billionaire leader. He would be driving around in a Rolls Royce or a Maybach Mercedes. But they put him on a camel because, All Arabs are backwards camel riders who can't afford cars. It's a soft punch down. But hey, at least they're riding the right type of camel with one hump. Listen to what he says here.
As Supreme Military Commander, King of Kings.
Now for certain we know they're referencing Gaddafi. He bestowed upon himself the title King of Kings, just like what Abdul Fakadi says. And did you notice his accent? It has a Russian tinge to it.
The Socialist Democratic Federated Republic of Carbomia.
I hear this all the time in Western media. They love giving Arabs a Russian accent. He tells the Decepticons they have until sunset tomorrow to leave the country or he'll have them executed in the town square. This is an Orientalist dig. The idea that all Arab countries practice things like public executions. It's framing Arabs as backwards and barbaric. The truth is, while many Arab countries do have capital punishment, the vast majority are done within the walls of prisons, not in public settings. And this mirrors the United States, which also has capital punishment.
Triptychon and me want to turn your country into a paradise.
It already is a paradise.
This is a dig at the lands of Arabia. Bigoted Westerners view Arabia as an empty desert. It's set up as a joke. They're expecting the audience to laugh at the idea that he thinks it's already a paradise. There's a negative connotation with deserts. People think they're empty and they're ugly and they're soulless. The desert is a beautiful place.
Do you like gold?
Gold.
This plays into an Arab stereotype. They're money hungry. All they care about is the dollar amount. I've seen this stereotype played out in other American media. Or it's just a bad guy who cares about power and money. You tell me. The Decepticons travel to Fort Knox and steal gold from there. Next shot, for some reason, looks like a desert. I'm pretty sure Kentucky doesn't have a desert like what we see here. This cartoon cannot even get America right. Look at this soldier. He's wearing army fatigues and a qitra. This is weird. Arab military members typically wear berets or military-style hats. I have seen Jordanian royal guards wear a shmagh with their military uniform, but this is done for ceremonial purposes. And again, Libyans don't wear the qitra and agal, and army soldiers of the 1980s wouldn't wear it on their heads like this while on active military duty. It's clear to me the idea is to make them look different compared to American soldiers. Abdul Fakadi tells the Decepticons they can stay in Carbomia, but only until the next crescent moon. This is a reference to the Islamic lunar calendar, which many Muslim majority countries use instead of the Gregorian calendar. The Islamic year right now is 1448 AH. AH stands for after Hijrah, referring to the Prophet Muhammad's migration from Mecca to Medina in 622 CE. I get the feeling that this line was meant as a joke, like the audience is supposed to laugh because, haha, Arabs use the moon. But maybe I'm being a little too cynical. Maybe the writers accidentally wanted to teach people something real. The Decepticons want to make Abdul Fakadi happy. Their plan is to get him a new palace. Bam! It hits us with the Taj Mahal. Oh my goodness. First, throwing Indian imagery into depictions of Arabs is incredibly Orientalist. It happens all the time and it's offensive. Aladdin 92 is so heavily Indian that I've had over 1,000 comments on my video about it from Indians telling me I blew their minds when I said the story is supposed to take place in Arabia. It is so Indian, they thought it was set in India. Second, let's pretend Carbomia is a coastal city in Libya, like Benghazi. The distance from Benghazi to the Taj Mahal is 5,600 kilometers. So you're telling me this giant power-hungry transformer walked 5,600 kilometers to India, picked up the Taj Mahal, then carried it all the way back to Libya? Later in the episode, Decepticons shoot 5 laser shots, then retreat because they're getting low on energon, their fuel source. 5 shots gets them low on energy, but 10,000 plus kilometers of walking doesn't burn up their fuel? Seriously? Yusuf, remember, this is a cartoon. They put the Taj Mahal in there because they were thinking Arabs, Indians, same thing, let's throw some Indian stuff into this. Then we see Triptychon walk in and set down the Eiffel Tower. Okay, that's zany. I get it. Now Triptychon is stealing the Kremlin from Russia and walking with it. There's a news broadcast. We see a person wearing a turban saying that they stole the Taj Mahal. They put this turban on the news reporter to make sure you know it's Indian. I'm not saying news reporters in India don't wear them, but There's a clear intention here to show the people as different. And they've got a white guy doing an Indian-like accent.
Since Metroplex was caught red-handed stealing the Kremlin in Moscow,
They can't decide how to depict the Arabs. Here they're in army fatigues wearing qitras. The next shot, they switch back over to wearing full dishdashes. Make up your mind, animators. The Autobots save the day and ask Abdul Fakadi not to cooperate with the Decepticons again. Listen to his reply.
I swear to you on the grave of my mother's camel, and my uncle's goat, and even my sister's donkeys. And did I say my brother's sheep and my nephew's roosters? Such fine roosters you never did see.
Wow. Gloves off. Full on. Every offensive thing they can think of when it comes to Arabs and animals. What was going through their brains letting this episode air? We've watched the episode for ourselves, and now I get it. Casey Kasem was right to walk away from the show because of this episode. It is horrendously offensive. The worst part is that it's a kid's cartoon. These offensive stereotypes influence how children think of people. I don't like it. It's all clear now. This was adding to the hate of Arabs. It was part of a bigger pattern. Years later, Casey explained exactly why that pattern mattered. He wrote an essay called Arab Defamation in the Media, Its Consequences and Solutions. Even though he wrote it decades ago, it's honestly amazing how relevant it still feels today. Casey's argument wasn't that cartoons magically make people racist overnight. His point was much more subtle than that. Entertainment shapes the way people see the world. The stories we grow up with become the assumptions we carry into adulthood. Americans exposed to years of Arab bashing eventually become lawmakers, diplomats, military officers, journalists, teachers, employers, and voters. So if every Arab they ever see on television is a terrorist, a dictator, a religious fanatic, or some backwards caricature, what assumptions are they going to carry with them for the rest of their lives? This is something I bring up all the time on my channel. People rarely remember every plot point from the movies they watch, but they do remember the feeling those movies leave behind. They remember who the characters are, the villains, who gets laughed at, who's the hero, who's feared, and who gets to be human. When one movie does it, whatever, brush it off to the bigotry of the filmmakers. But when hundreds, even thousands of movies are all saying the same exact message, that's when people start thinking it's true.
And then the Arabs, same thing. Belly dancers, bombers, and billionaires. You mention Arab, you hear terrorist, and that's what in the past 70 years Hollywood has managed to do to the image of Arabs.
One of my favorite parts of Casey's essay is when he talks about responsibility. The producers who hire the writers, the actors who read the lines, and the directors who shoot the pictures can stop it in its tracks before it gets started. All it takes is one of those people somewhere along the line to have the courage to say, "No, I won't do it." This exemplifies Casey's morals. Rather than preaching, he's living by the foundation of being a good human being. He looked at a script, he recognized the stereotype, and he said no. Think about how uncommon this is. Actors spend years trying to land steady work. Walking away from a successful show isn't easy. It could cost you future jobs. It could get you labeled as difficult. Casey knew all of this, but he still did it. He walked away. And you know what's special? The more I read about Casey, the more I like him. This act was courageous, but it wasn't his only one. Casey was a lifelong vegan and a passionate advocate for animal rights. In 1995, he was asked to voice Shaggy in a Burger King commercial. He refused. He actually quit voicing Shaggy because he didn't want the character promoting hamburgers. Years later, when producers asked him to return, Casey agreed on one condition. They had to make Shaggy a vegetarian. I love this story because it's so wholesome. It tells you everything you need to know about Casey Kasem. He wasn't someone who changed his values depending on who signed the paycheck. Whether it involved animals, Arabs, or his principles, he lived with integrity. What makes Casey even more impressive is the time period he did it in. There was no internet. No YouTube, no Twitter. There weren't millions of people online talking about representation in media. If you spoke out against Hollywood, there was a real chance you'd simply stop getting hired. Where else could you go? Meanwhile, Hollywood kept doing what Hollywood had been doing for decades. The Arab was the terrorist, the fanatic, the dictator, the default bad guy. I've covered plenty of these movies on this channel. The Delta Force, Back to the Future, Aladdin, and there are hundreds more I'm gonna look at. The stereotypes become so common that most writers don't even know they're repeating them. It's just the norm. But Casey, he noticed. To him, they weren't fictional villains. They were his family, his neighbors, his community, his people. Casey's legacy. Today, Casey Kasem is remembered for a lot of things, but I'm gonna remember him as being a good person. Whether you grew up listening to him on the radio or watching him on Saturday mornings, Casey Kasem left his mark on generations of Americans. But I think another part of his legacy deserves far more attention. He quietly became one of the first well-known Arab Americans in Hollywood to publicly stand up against anti-Arab stereotyping from inside the industry itself. He didn't give angry speeches, he didn't throw insults, and he didn't demand perfection. He simply asked one reasonable question: is there a good Arab in this script? When the answer was no, he walked away. I think this is an incredible act of courage, because he wasn't asking Hollywood to make Arabs perfect. He wasn't asking them to remove the villain. He simply believed that if millions of children were gonna watch a cartoon featuring Arabs, they deserved to see at least one who wasn't a greedy dictator, a fanatic, or a punchline. There's a word for this: fair. It's being fair. One thing that struck me while researching Casey is how much I see myself in him. He stood up for what he believed in, even when it wasn't popular.
There is never enough money to clean up our environment, but there is always enough money for war.
He refused to compromise his principles for a paycheck. He was a vegan. I'm a vegetarian. He cared deeply about how his community was portrayed. I spend a huge part of this channel documenting the negative portrayal of Arabs for documentational and educational purposes, trying to tell people this isn't us. Arabs are beautiful, kind, wonderful people. Obviously, I'm not going to compare myself to Casey Kasem. He's one of the greatest voice actors of all time, but I understand why he did what he did. When you spend your whole life seeing your culture reduced to the same handful of stereotypes, eventually someone has to take a stand. Casey did this, and it's what I'm trying to do in my own way. So the next time you hear Shaggy say zoinks, I hope you remember. Behind one of America's most beloved cartoon characters was an Arab American who refused to help turn his own people into another hateful stereotype. Casey Kasem spent a lifetime giving his voice to characters that millions of children, like me, grew up loving. But the moment that defined his legacy wasn't a line he recorded. It was a line he refused to cross.